Yeah, what I want to talk to you guys about is, can humans and nature coexist? And a simple answer to this question, putting this on my nose just because I feel like it, you know, um, I don't know, just having fun. But seriously, the serious question is yes. The first thing we are going to have to do if we want to make nature and humanity live in harmony, even with a bigger population, people say that we're going to have to depopulate the world, which I think is silly. Because why do we need to depopulate the world when we could just simply use our brains? There's a lot of methods that people have been saying that nobody listened to, and this is one I'm gonna get to right here. This is my own idea. Is that I think the best way for us to do this is for us to start living in bigger cities. Okay, cities where you can actually have where you can have a population that lives in the area and at the same time is not interfering with nature. Let me explain, okay? For example, look at apartment buildings. If you stack 10 apartment buildings, or let's just say, I should have said 10 houses on top of each other. Instead, how much space does it take up? Okay? How much space does it take up? If you were to put 10 houses on top of each other, at least the width area, which means as wide as it is on top of each other, for 10 places, I guess you could say 10 stories. How much land does it take up? It takes up the area of that one house, okay? Of course, it'd have to be a little thicker than that because it would probably break, and it wouldn't need reinforcements, but it doesn't take that much up space, okay? And that holds the room for a lot of families. But if you were to have 10 houses that were on the ground, spread out through an area, what do you think happens? Okay, and these are full-size houses. These are average middle-class houses, which is a full-size house that's not connected to a neighbor's house. What do you think is what do you think is gonna take up more room? And that's exactly what my idea is not literally have them in the shape of houses or anything, but to have apartment buildings that are close to, if not the full size of an actual house, that it's in the shape of an apartment. Now, not only will this take up less space because you'd have a higher population density living in an area, so we don't have to spread out, and sometimes people might want to live in an area in the middle of a forest or something. If anything, you could probably just visit the forest and have a huge gate to make sure, that nothing gets inside, So you could just simply, live in an apartment house. And not just that, you'd also have less chances and abilities because apartment buildings are made out of concrete and steel. That's pretty much it. Okay, and this world sure does have a lot. Knowing the fact that a lot of concrete is just simply made out of just like water and just sand, really. So honestly, if you're living in a place that's made out of those things, instead of having to live in a regular house, the chances that you would have to cut down trees to make room for that is a lot less likely. Definitely a lot less trees will end up dead. And maybe they might find alternate ways, you know, to make apartment buildings. You know, maybe they might find a way you could use sand from the sea, which there ever a lot of it, or a lot. But one thing is for certain, it will leave less of an impact on nature. Now we get to the other issue. You know, people might, you know, where we grow food indoors. You know, what if we were to grow food indoors in massive football stadiums? You know, at least the size of it might not seem like enough, but you have to include the fact that the amount that food it's gonna produce, from grains to sand, you know, and all of the fruits and vegetables and even animals. But I'll just focus on plants for this one. What do you think is, you know, honestly, if it's for all year round, it doesn't have to worry about the issues such as snow. It doesn't have to worry about a hurricane, depending on where you live. How do you think how much more food is going to be produced? You know, and just because it's the size of a football stadium on the bottom, it doesn't mean it doesn't have bottom layers too. So overall, it's going to produce more food for everybody, okay? It might not be a huge field. And those huge fields, oh my gosh, I don't even think they produce as much as you think that they do, you know? And because it's in the place of the human beings, it'll be more under supervision. It'll probably be of better quality. You know, we don't have to worry too much about little animals, and it'll be cut exactly how it's supposed to be cut by people driving tractor trailers. You know, it'll you know, and through that process, it'll be more accurate, and it'll be exactly the way we intend it to be. You know, because it's under our full control. And the biggest issue with this idea, which I've raised up with a lot of people, and this actually is a very good question. If we were to do this sort of stuff, how would we be able to trade with other countries? Okay? Because other countries, a lot of the stuff we have, such as oranges, that is what comes from their country. Okay? But look at it this way. Okay? The thing is that you have to realize something. Anybody who's ever traveled to other parts of the world would tell you that if you would have a potato in maybe like Peru, or maybe have a potato in like Canada, even if it's the same species of potatoes and you actually grew, it came from Canada and went back to Peru where potatoes originated from, it would taste different, you know, because it has a different soil, and the soil has different nutrients in it. So it's going to taste different than maybe Canada. You know, Canada, maybe its influence might be, you know, it's a bit cold. You know, and just in general, even for tropical regions, it might be different, you know, just because the nutritional makeup of the soil. If you don't believe me, you can go look it up yourself. You know, this actually has been reported out there. It's such as tomatoes. Tomatoes originated in the old world, but if you, as I'm pretty sure a lot of people who if they're watching this video, will tell you, is that they do say that the tomatoes in Italy taste different than the ones in you know, where it came from in Mexico, because that's where tomatoes originate from, Mexico. You know, there was even some that apparently are poisonous, or, you know, you're not supposed to eat it, and there's a certain process. If you eat it, you're supposed to do it. Why is this happening? It's because it's a different area, and of course, it's evolved differently. You know, and also you also have to, so maybe in general, somebody one day might want tomatoes from, you know, from Italy, and one day they might want to try tomatoes that have that distinct taste from Canada. You know, so it's different everywhere. So another thing you also have to realize is that Each and every place has different resources, Canada has more oil than some nations, and some nations, they have more something to build something with. Instead, like I heard, places like Trinidad, it has a lot of land you can use to create concrete. So in general, man, depending on the region you live in, it will affect exactly. There always will be something to trade with other nations, even if we were to use this idea. Okay, so maybe this video answered your question, and that's it, and that's all I have to say.